place, so I grabbed it myself. And as the first reading kind of pointed out, the Baha'i message is one of unity. And Baha'u'llah, I have a quote of Baha'u'llah. He said, "That which the Lord hath ordained as the sovereign remedy and the mightiest instrument for the healing of all the world is the union of all its people in one universal cause, one common faith." And that common faith is the faith of God. We call ourselves different religions, but we have the faith of God. That's our common faith. And the reason that it's kind of important to know this before we talk about politics is because our political actions in the Baha'i faith are tied up with that idea of love and unity. And so I want to just use a little imagination here. We're in our cars and we're driving along, and we're on our way to something fun, and maybe it's going home, fixing a nice dinner for ourselves or for a friend, for relatives. We have our groceries, we're in a good mood, the world is great. We feel good about ourselves. We're driving along, and out of the corner of our eye, we see a bumper sticker. And this bumper sticker is so offensive that our liver starts pumping out acid and our heart starts beating a little faster. And it's all we can do not to drive up next to this person just to see what does a person look like who actually thinks this. And this change in our physiological self is because of the disagreements that we have. This very real attitude is caused by our binary system. And I mean this as a political, by the way. There are other things that I don't want to go into, but today's political. But it makes us have to pick sides. And so if we're on this side, then that side is wrong. And it gives us permission to not like those people. It gives us permission to think they're not worthy for some reason. And that is disunity. That, my friends, is prejudice. And it's ingrained in the system. So what we're asked to do as Baha'is is don't take part in the partisan part of politics. We are asked to register independent or no preference, so that, and believe me, this is hard when you have become a Baha'i after being a certain party for many years. It really is. Sorry, Baha'u'llah, but it is tough because you do believe a certain way. And so you have to kind of train yourself to slowly realize that God has a plan. There's some reason why he has brought this disunity into the earth so that we can look at it, train ourselves to kind of get away from that prejudice. So, in fact, Baha'u'llah makes it very clear. In his last will and testament, he said, "Henceforth everyone should utter that which is meet and seemly, should refrain from slander, abuse, and whatever causeth sadness in men." Imagine that, causing no sadness in a person that you meet. Now, that's a pretty high standard, but that's what we're asked to do. So, kind of a high standard. So that is the philosophy of the politics. And we avoid this affiliation with any political party, but it doesn't mean that the community avoids involvement with civil society. We're very active, and we are asked to be anxiously concerned with the needs of the age you live in. So we, higher education, universal quality education, things that we want to fight for, trying to get rid of this prejudice that is, Andres mentioned this, is so difficult this week when we we see how the prejudice of our actions is bubbling up, and one thing, it makes us look it right into the face. But let's see, I have to kind of watch the time. But Baha'is we have, okay, let's say that in our own little communities we have elections. And then we elect people, 9 people in our community, and then we elect one of the people from our area to go and vote for the National Spiritual Assembly, and then the National Spiritual Assembly members vote for the Universal House of Justice, which is in Haifa, Israel. And it's the head of the Baha'i faith. And so when we have an election, everyone over 21 votes, is eligible to vote, and also everyone over 21 is eligible to be elected to an office. So there's no campaigning, there is no nominations. We meet before we vote, we pray, we try to empty our mind of all that, who are the best people to do this job. And what it eliminates, instead of listening to our politicians tell us what they're going to do and making a decision based on that, we make a decision based on what the person has actually done. So throughout the year, we kind of think, well, you know, this person really did a great job when we had that luncheon. They arranged all the food. I think they would be a good chairman, or I think they need to, you know, so you really look at what they've done, not at what they say they're going to do. Talk's cheap, you know, so. And so there's no, and no one also would ever say, I would really like to be on the assembly this year. It just is very not acceptable. So if a politician was trying to get the Baha'i vote, you know, if they tried to appeal to the Baha'is, what they would want to do is, let's see if I can find this note that I took here. They would, the first thing, the speeches would be very, very short, because any disparaging comment aimed at the opponents would be out. Baha'is wouldn't go for that. One thing we're told, magnify not the faults of others, that thine own faults may not appear great. So it might sound vaguely familiar, because basically it's the golden rule, right? So, and then we consider all of humanity as members of one family, regardless of race or religion. So candidates should avoid scapegoating immigrants, demonizing Muslims, or generally maligning anyone. So they wouldn't be able to talk about that. So their speeches would be shorter, but we'd be able to make a decision based on what they have done in the past. But the fundamental challenge that a politician would face in attempting to court the Baha'i vote is that the whole campaign process is anti-ethical to how Baha'is select their own leadership, since we select based on what they've done. So they wouldn't be able to say, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. So the values that Baha'is hold during their own elections, which is honesty, integrity, and considering one's neighbor as oneself, are really universally held values. And more precisely, they are Christian values. Values that our presidential candidates would do well to remember. So if there's any questions or anything I can answer.
Can you describe, you describe the process you go through to pick your own leadership?
Yeah.
What do you do in general election time?
You mean when we're voting for the president?
When you're looking for president, senators.
Okay.
So forth.
Talk about the person as running is frowned upon. If you're involved in a conversation with someone who is a supporter of one or the other of our candidates, and they are bringing up something that was said, if I can use an example, that we need to build a big wall, or that we need to not let certain people into our country, and if they're here already, we need to keep them away. That would give us a wonderful opportunity to talk about the spiritual importance of ending prejudice. So you kind of take the emphasis away from that human being and bring it to the issue. Every conversation, if you bring it down to the issue of the spiritual need, then you find you're really talking to that person. In fact, we were talking about that inner part of ourselves. And you'll find that really you'll have a wonderful conversation with a person. And this is another thing that isn't easy. They might still just want to keep talking about that person, in which case you can slowly back up, or else you can get right involved and talk about it. But it's, the whole idea is to bring America back or into a spiritual conversation.
Dolores, so do you go to the polls?
Oh yeah, we vote. Oh, we vote. We are definitely.
So basically it's not a group thing, it's
No.
your individual vote.
Yeah.
It's your own individual vote, just like anybody else.
Exactly. We do. Yeah. Even though you're an independent voter, the only thing you don't do is you don't make a selection by party. Like I wouldn't go and say I'm a Democrat and then vote for, they have a list of Democrats, vote for one of them. I don't identify with a party, but when the time comes to vote, we are told that's part of our country's privilege, and so yeah, we take part in the election.
I think this year they said independents could vote in the.
They could. We could have asked, I could have asked for a Democratic ballot or a Republican ballot, and I just chose not to. This year,
So basically you're saying that you're letting somebody else make a decision.
for the nomination of the party, yes. So that's true. Yeah.
So people were you going to ask a question? Okay. In areas where the Baha'i faith is more present among the primary demographic, would someone run for office, like political office?
A Baha'i?
Yeah.
No.
So you wouldn't see like a Baha'i equivalent of a mayor
No.
or a senator or something like that.
The very fact,
Come on in. Yeah.
very fact that you're running says, I am better than this guy. In the United States, it'd be almost impossible to win without pointing the finger. Well, the world that Baha'u'llah envisions for us is one where we want the other person to succeed. It's my job to see that you do well in
Wow.
whatever endeavor, because that raises everyone, And running for office, you just can't do it. The way that we have it now is just impossible, Orion, did you have a question?
Well, I have another question, and Kurtz was close enough that you answered it. But,
Okay.
But not you.
Oh, good.
So, and it just went out.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
Okay.
Is there any sort of, do the Baha'is take an active role in, or an advocacy, for example, of attempting for the United States to find an alternative to the two-party system?
No, not that, but like marching in a peaceful march to encourage equality would be, you'd see Baha'is in that. Not, well, even, that is racial equality, let's use as an example. You'd want to be counted on that. That's a spiritual, that's important spiritually. We can see it this week. In fact, we can see it everywhere. We've got to heal ourselves of that. And So that we would take part in. But trying to change the system of the government as the binaries, no. We'd have to come up with something like, being able to vote for anyone who is eligible, and I don't think that we're ready for that in this country yet.
So it sounds, yeah, I'm curious about the idea of separation of church and state, or like this idea of your religion being present in politics, and
Yes.
it sounds to me like it's very much present, that you would kind of but it's more of a perspective rather than like an outspoken thing. We're not going to sit, after in coffee hour or something and talk about politics rather versus a politician, but more of the idea. But I guess I'm trying to think historically or even currently how the Baha'i faith would dream of a governmental structure, or what would it look like if it's not
The way that it is.
Yeah, how would things be done if not done the way how they're currently done?
Well, if in San Francisco, for instance, we'll just take San Francisco as an example, you have community meetings, different places. You build a community of people who know each other, and you build a community that needs workers, and you see who does the work. If everyone in San Francisco would be eligible to be, we have like 9, and it's hard for me to envision anything else. One person making decisions is really hard now. There's too much. But if you had a number of people, we use 9, but whatever number, let's say 5, is decided by the government, then you vote for the person who's able to do the job. And then those 5 people would consult. And then you'd have all the cities in some area of California, some area of Northern California, including San Francisco. And then of those people, you'd vote of a person to represent them. So you'd use this grassroots system. And it sounds like something that is impossible, but every day we're working and moving toward a way to work this out on by computers. By the time we're ready for it, the computer, you just go into the computer and you just vote for that person. They'll have them secure, and they'll have them. And maybe we will reach a point as human beings where we wouldn't be dishonest and put in, I don't know. But it just seems that, it seems to me that it is, but I don't know. You may see it, you're a young man, but, the thing is we have to dream. Every religion has promised a day when we're going to have harmony with humankind. We're going to have peace, we're going to work together. And we have to keep that in our mind that it's going to happen. Yes, it's surely not today, but keep it in our mind and then just work a little bit toward that, and there you are. And you're helping. And all of you are helping.
Yeah.
And I see it in this congregation, very, very beautiful.
Thank you. Any other questions before we thank Dolores?
Oh,
Thank you so much.
It's surely my pleasure. Thank you.